of the video for conscious capitalism.
Going live. Boop, 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 boop.
I just want to preface this with I don't know what to split at the moment, but I will be soon enough.
Well, welcome everybody to the first episode of 2023 of Consciousness Capital. I'm sorry. Conscious Capital, or Capital Consciousness. Look at me. I'm definitely not nervous. So welcome everybody. Welcome back. I hope that that doesn't turn you away because we have a really good show in store for you. Today, as we enter the new year, we're going to talk about debt management. All right. And I've got a live guest here with me today. I've got Joshua Laurellas in the studio. I'm going to put him on the camera. Make the switch. Sorry, this is new technology. All right, like it's gonna be really cool when I get it, but I don't have it yet, so bear with me. All right, and there he is. Welcome, Joshua.
Hey, what's up, Franklin?
And we're gonna, as always, pop into Clubhouse here, get that conversation going, so that way you guys who are listening, you guys can jump in any point in this conversation and join us live. Okay, so another year is behind us, and for some of us it was a good year, for some of us it wasn't. It varied a lot fiscally. I noticed, me personally, I had a great year. How about you, Joshua? How was your year?
There was a lot of learning for me. I personally got to alchemize and kind of refine my ability to have friendships and relationships at deeper levels in order to particularly build business and to build experiences and platforms, and also family relationships really improved this last year for me. But I had a lot of wins and losses, but overall net growth.
Nice.
Amazing, yeah.
Nice. All right. So I got a couple topics here, but as always, we're going to try to stay flexible. So that way, if there's anybody who hops in or whatever, we can, keep the conversation flowing. But what I want to bring to the attention today, to the front of prefrontal cortex, is I want to talk about specifically inventorying and budgeting. And when I say inventorying, I'm not talking about collecting a bunch of things to sell, but inventorying your accounts, your payments out, things like Netflix. And I want to talk about the snowball method because that's probably the most tried and true. And if you go to an accountant and pay him a lot of money to help you with your debt, that's probably what they're going to recommend that you try doing, is the snowball method. And then I want to spend a little time with some do's and don'ts of how to get out of debt and manage debt. And if we have time, I want to talk about some loan consolidation methods, and possibly some credit repair, and how to calculate risk when it comes to your credit. All right, so starting from the top, it's inventorying and budgeting. Now, a budget is extremely important, especially if you have a bit of debt, because if you budget correctly, you can create a surplus of finance that will allow you to start chipping away at this massive elephant. Now, when I say inventory and combined with budget, I'm asking you to take an honest look at your finance. Look at all of your accounts, look at all of the money coming in, not just monthly but weekly, but like add everything up. All of those little decisions are: how many times are you eating out? Track everything. And a really easy way to do this is just look at a few months worth of bank statements and do some calculation. So the reason that you want to inventory is because one of the quickest ways to accumulate extra money to help chip away at debt is by honestly auditing your choices and making ones that are a little bit more fiscally responsible. Doing things like, for me personally, a big one that I had to cut out, which was hard because it was connected to addiction, was tobacco. It doesn't seem like a big deal, $10, but you do that math over the years, it's a lot. And so you can take that same mentality and apply it to something like food. If you are eating at home, that's going to cost much less than if you go to a restaurant. In fact, depending on who you ask and what restaurant, it's like 300 to 1,000% more to eat out than it is to eat at home. Hey, how's it going, Andres? And if you even go out further and you take like Uber Eats up on their offer and you get them to drive it to your house, now you're looking at anywhere from 500 to 1,500% increase on your food cost. So that's something that you could inventory, is like, how am I budgeting for food? And so if you combine an inventory with a budget responsibly, you can create a lot of extra capital that you can then use to start chipping away at your cumulative debt. I'm going to take a pause and let's see. I'm going to invite Andres to join us real quick. Hey, how you doing? Happy New Year's. Happy 2023.
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. All right, man. Yeah, happy 2023. How's it going so far?
Not bad. I was actually just kind of going over, my last year was pretty good. It seemed like a lot of people might have had some struggles because of the post-COVID logistics and all that stuff with business, but I had a pretty good year. And so I was kind of trying, like, that's the theme today. I want to share some of the debt strategies that I was using to help me kind of rise out of like a sticky situation that I've been in for a little bit.
Right. Okay. Well, cool.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the conversation. Thank you for joining.
Of course, man. Do you have these groups a lot? I'm real new to Clubhouse, so I'm still trying to figure everything out.
Yeah. So this particular conversation, I'm going to do this time every week. It'll be every Tuesday from 4 roughly until around 5. And this particular conversation is going to be always, it's about, conscious capital stuff. So we're going to go over all sorts of, I actually have a website that has, all the way through April, all of the topics that you can look at, which I'll post that in the chat here in a second. But I also do conversations on like personal development under this one called Love, Health, and Happiness. And that's Sundays 4 to roughly around 5. And I do another one that's kind of like a future talk about technology and some of the bigger problems that I think technology might be able to help solve. And that's on Fridays, again, from 4.
Gotcha. Well, cool. Sorry to interrupt your little deal, but
No, don't apologize. I actually thank you for the opportunity to throw that plug in there, because this is my first time, brand new year, brand new ideas. So thank you for joining us.
Of course, man. All right.
Did you wanna jump in, Joshua? You can be heard. So the next part of this, just to kind of give you again like a little recap of the topics, that was inventory and budgeting, and so we're going over debt management strategies. The next one I'm going to go over is the snowball method, which is probably the most common and well-rounded method for debt management. And I want to talk about some do's and don'ts, and then if we have time, we'll get into like loan consolidation options, and then credit repair and stuff that you can do to kind of recover from debt. All right, so getting into the snowball method. Now, the snowball method is very simple. It's been broken down probably most simply into 4 basic steps. And so I'm just gonna list the steps and then we'll get into them a little bit more. So step 1 is to list all of your debts from smallest to largest. And there's a caveat from smallest to largest, but I'll come back to that. Step 2 is to make the minimum payments on all of your debts except for the smallest. And step 3 is to pay as much as possible on your smallest debt. And step 4 is to repeat until each debt is paid in full. Okay, so the reason that I want to go back to the idea of smallest versus largest is because that can, it's not so black and white. It's not like your $10,000 account versus your $1,000 account. Now it sounds black and white like that, but you got to consider interest rate. Like you have, like say $5,000 worth of debt, but that interest rate is at 20%, and you have $4,000 of debt, and that interest rate is at 10%. You definitely should be more concerned about the higher interest rate, even though it's a bigger debt, and try to pay that off first, because that interest rate is what's going to ultimately, over time, take more money away from you and make your debt actually larger. So you have to factor in your interest rates for sure. And I know 20% sounds crazy, but if you look at credit card contracts, they can actually ask for up to 28% depending on what your credit score is. So 20% is actually kind of middle ground when you're in substantial debt. So you definitely want to, when you're lining them up from biggest to smallest, I would prioritize interest rate first, unless like it's just absolutely outlandish. Like if you're paying off a house in one case, and that like obviously that's going to take a long time. So even if the interest rate is kind of intense, like maybe that one goes at the end of the line, just because you cannot afford to actually do any real damage to that debt. So let's assume that we've done a good inventory and we set a good budget, and that created like $100 extra a month that we can now throw into our debt. So we're using the snowball method, starting from smallest to largest, considering that interest rate like I mentioned. You line them up and you throw that extra $100 on top of the minimum payment. Once you've paid off the smallest debt, you add that $100 and whatever the minimum payment was from the smallest debt onto the next smallest, and so on and so forth. And it creates this snowball effect where the amount of money that you're available to pay for your debt never really changes, but the amount of money that you're paying towards your debt does, and it does in an uphill way. Another kind of secondary bonus to this is, meanwhile, your bigger, like say you have a $5,000 and $6,000 car debt, or that you're paying the minimum interest on, or maybe you're not even paying it all because you can't afford it, which we'll talk about risk strategies here in a minute. But if you have that big $5,000 debt kind of towards the end, if it takes you 2 to 3 years to get to that debt, when you do, they're probably going to be looking at you as kind of like a risk assessment, and they're going to be willing to make deals, like lump sum deals. If it's a $6,000 debt, and they might even give you up to 40% depending on how old the debt is, because they're afraid that after 7 years they don't get anything. Like your credit score gets messed up, but they can't collect their money anymore. So if you're the closer you get to 7 years, the more they're going to make deals with you, and you can get all the way up to 40% off the original debt depending on how long you wait. So for $6,000, now all of a sudden you're looking at clearing that all up for like $3,500. So I'm going to pause there and kind of open up the floor for conversation. Any comments, questions, thoughts, or concerns? And I actually have Joshua here live in the studio, so I can't hear. Dude, just speak.
Let's see. Yeah, honestly, with finances, I've been in this journey of consolidating my debt and realizing that I had personally been avoiding debt for reasons that were totally psychologically blind spots for me. And so as I've journeyed into the debt consolidation world of getting out of that kind of space that I didn't realize was affecting me until it was really affecting me, right? Like, it's been a journey, but it's something that I've been able to look at business in a different angle after approaching it, and getting educated on how to leverage debt also, and then really the importance of the credit score and how it can be leveraged in ways that can put you really ahead if you can discipline yourself to utilize the methods correctly and remove emotions from the situation.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. Did you have something to add, Andres?
Yeah, so I was wondering, are y'all trying to say that it's like kind of a good idea to maybe put yourself under a small amount of debt for credit reasons?
So that can be a strategy, yes. I mean, if you're trying to build your credit, if you have great credit, then I don't recommend accruing any debt. In fact, like, like one of the best things you can do for your credit is to get out of debt first, because there's a big difference between controlled intention debt and then like credit cards and car loans and stuff like that.
Gotcha. So I was just wondering, I'm trying to build my knowledge right now. I'm a 19-year-old man, I have a personal loan right now for my vehicle.
Sure.
But it was just to, kind of build some credit. So I'm just trying to, educate myself at the moment. I'm under, no debt, other than my loan that I'm taking out right now. But, I can pay that off right now. I'm just trying to, figure out
The best way to go about it?
Right, exactly.
Definitely. And that's a fair point and a fair question, and thank you for being honest in the share. So everything that I've read, you want to keep your debt versus income ratio to roughly 25 to 30. You never want to go above 30%. That's when the credit companies start to get a little bit nervous, is that you're accruing debt faster than you can pay for it responsibly. And the theory is if you stay under 1/3, then every check that you get, you could pay for twice as much as you currently are. And so you're actually extenuating the amount of time that you have before you can't pay your debt. And so that's what they're measuring, is like, how long can this person, given their rate of income versus their rate of debt accruing, how long before they cannot pay this debt? And if it's really quick and they're not going to get a lot of money and they're not going to have a lot of time to work with you, then that'll start to like actually be negative on your credit score. But it is actually healthy for your credit score if you're trying to develop it, if it's below like say 700 or 750 even, to accrue a bit of debt and make payments on time, because that is one of the fastest and tried and true methods to increase your credit score, given that you're not paying more than you can afford in the eyes of the creditors. And that percentage is roughly 25%. So if you're making $3,000 a month and your rent is over $1,000, like that's going to make them nervous. And not your rent, but like your mortgage. If your mortgage is over $1,000, they're going to be looking at it like, this person's like right on the line of 1/3. It's actually probably pretty good for a house, but like a car. If your car payment starts to cut into above 20-25% of your income, they're going to start to get nervous that you're not going to make payments, or that you won't be able to if you lose your job. So I actually have pulled up the 5 factors that are the most important factors for credit score as far as the credit bureaus are concerned. So number 1 is your payment history, which this is obviously the combination of have you or have you not been making your payments. So that's very simple. If you make your payments on time, they love that. If you don't, they don't like that. If you make partial payments, that's somewhere in between. The amount owed. Okay, well actually I'm going to read this real quick because this is pretty much what I was talking about a second ago. So leaders want to be sure that you will pay back your debt and on time, and when they are considering you for new credit. Payment history accounts for 35% of your FICO score, and that score is used by 90% of top lenders. So that's that in a nutshell. So amount owed. This is what we were just talking about. Essentially, if your ratio, I'll just read it off of right here, off of this. It's called explainer.com is where I'm getting this. So the ratio, it looks at how much of your available credit, utilizing a snapshot of how reliant you are on non-cash funds. So essentially your bank account. Using more than 30% of what available credit is a negative to creditors. Creditors utilization accounts for 30% of your FICO score. So one third of your score is going to be based on does your bank account hold two times the amount of your debt? essentially. Does that make sense? Does that help or like answer your question at all?
Yeah, that makes sense so far.
Okay, cool. So the third factor is credit history length. Now, so this one is pretty much mostly a negative factor. This is looking at if you have to stop making payments or if you can't make full payments, how long has this debt kind of been accruing incorrectly? Because if you're making your payments correct, the credit history length is going to be actually a helpful factor because you're paying everything on time, and that's great. But the second you can't pay everything up front, basically starts a clock. And the longer that this clock is on, and the worse it is for your credit. And the way to turn the clock off is to basically catch up and start paying your payments as agreed upon on time when you're supposed to. And the second you can do that, you turn the clock off, and the shorter that the clock is on and the less money that's involved, the less it affects your credit. So then number 4 is mixed credits. So people with the top credit scores often carry a diverse portfolio of credit accounts. So this, like as you mentioned, Andreas, that you have a car, and that's a good start. It is. It really is. Later in life, you might pick up, like, say, a mortgage. Well, that's a 30-year loan. And you might pick up, I don't know, like, maybe you start a business and you get a business loan or you get a personal loan. But then on top of that, like, you buy, say, an expensive computer from Amazon, and that has like a 6-month payment plan. So the more diversity that you have in your credit profile, given that you still are less than 30% of like your net value is debt, the more diversified your credit portfolio is, the more it shows that you can responsibly manage several transactional accounts at a time, and that will help increase your credit score more quickly. And then new credit. So the number of credit accounts that you recently opened, that accounts for essentially 10% of your FICO score, which is how are you at accounting? How frequently are you opening accounts and what are you doing with them? If you like get a huge pay raise, for example, at work, and you jump up from like $40,000 a year to $75,000 a year, so from like, skilled labor to upper, like, mid management, pretty standard jump. They're going to see if you take advantage of that situation and go out and get like 7 or 8 credit cards and fill them up all really quickly, and then start paying. Like, if you do something like that, that's going to say a lot about your behavior as somebody who's receiving money. And so, like, what they're looking for is they're looking for people who are responsibly integrating all of their credit choices into like a timeline that makes sense for their financial situation, and people that aren't out there just making like huge credit purchases using like kind of mischievous means. So that's everything for the 5 factors of debt and credit. I want to open it back up for a second and see if we have any comments or shares. Do you want to hop on, Josh?
Oh, that's just a really good overview for me to look at all those things.
So, if you don't mind me jumping in here, kind of what I gathered from that was you were saying to, pay ahead of your amortization schedule, or just kind of get ahead of payments. So you, like you said, that window gets shorter. And then you were saying to maybe open up some more lines of credit to do it responsibly.
Right. Yeah, that would be a good way to go about it if you're looking to build your credit.
Right.
And so, like, if you have, since one of your accounts is currently a car account, getting a credit card right now would be a pretty good idea. And then using that credit card to kind of make payments on things that you already have to buy, so that those payments can be on quote-unquote credit, that would be a good way to do it too. Like, if you paid your rent on your credit card and then you paid that off, before the month was over, so that you didn't have to pay any interest on it. That shows that you can make, at least a few hundred, in our case out here in Arizona, like roughly $1,000 worth of like payment through credit without messing it up or accruing extra debt. So I think a credit card would be a good, if you don't have one, that would be a good situation. But just make sure before you start putting a lot of money on it, because your credit cap will start to increase over time as you make more and more responsible choices. Just make sure that you can put the habits in first with smaller choices, whether it's groceries or whatever it is. Assign something to that credit card and make sure that you can pay it off every month before accruing interest. That way, when you do have the bigger debt on your credit, you're not screwing yourself by having to pay anywhere from 13 to 7% for good interest, and like I was saying earlier, like up to 28% if you have bad credit, up to 28% for credit cards.
So actually, I had really good credit going into it, just because I have a credit card,
Nice.
I filled out for one as soon as I could, and so they actually gave me a really good interest rate. I think it's maybe 4 or 5%.
That is pretty good. Yeah, that's really good actually.
And so every couple months I make full payment just to get ahead.
Nice.
And I'm trying to kind of get my payment down as little as possible, but still be paying every month.
Definitely.
And so through doing that, I'm now at a 670 credit, and I'm trying to get that higher. Hopefully by the end of this year I'll be 690, 700.
Nice.
But I'm really looking to, like you said, open up a few more lines of credit and do so responsibly. Because I do spend a good amount of money just online shopping or getting groceries or all this other stuff. But what I was really wondering is, are there any credit companies or any specific cards that you think would help my situation? In cashback or whatever perks given that credit score?
That's a great question. Did you have any?
Yeah, there's on like YouTube and also HowTube, which is a new kind of how-to video streaming website, HowTube. That they have lots of videos of people that are more experts on like the credit hacking, and they really throw in a lot of resources. I know like people like Ty Lopez, and YouTube, they have a lot of really detailed like how to on where to go for the ones that have the perks and the rewards, so that way eventually you could be paying for a lot of things just purely out of rewards. Yeah, they have like that's like the goal there for those types of education is for you'd eventually utilize all the rewards to pay like all your necessity things.
Gotcha. Okay, well, thank you.
I think also there are specific credit cards, as you were saying, and I don't know off the top of my head. Most likely, whatever bank you're using, they'll have their own. But as the 5 points that the FICO score kind of mentioned, diversification is always going to be a good strategy. So if you have a standard brick and mortar bank, it's going to be better for your credit situation to do something online than it would to get another brick and mortar bank. If you have like a credit card with a bank, it would probably be better for your credit score to get a credit card with a corporation like say Amazon. And like if you're doing a lot of online shopping, you could do an Amazon credit card. I would be careful with that because corporate credit cards often have extremely high interest rates. But if you're pretty good at paying off your credit before it becomes, before they can collect interest on money owed, then, like you're not going to do anything but accrue points, like to Joshua's point. So yeah, I would recommend trying to be creative with diversification as far as that's concerned, and allow yourself, like, pace yourself out a little bit. Like, if you come up with a really diverse portfolio, it probably wouldn't be great for your credit to go out and do it all at one day. You know, if
Right.
they see you go get like 3 different types of credit cards and some Bitcoin or whatever it is, whatever moves it is that you're making, if you do it all at once, that's going to make them nervous because you're shaking the foundation.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, increasing income first and
Right, so you're just
foremost.
basically saying, kind of spread it out.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. So that I'm gonna go ahead and roll into the next one, which I think that personally I don't have a lot of experience here, so I was kind of hoping that maybe some people from the audience would, which is like loan consolidation. You know, I know a couple methods for, like I was mentioning earlier, like making calculated risk. If you're at a place with debt, and this is just for like anyone who might listen in the future, but if you're at a place with debt where you have a lot of frozen accounts, and the IRS is involved at this point because collections is involved. At this point, you might as well, if your credit score has already been destroyed by it, you might as well be smart and patient and kind of assess your risk. Because if you're there, the best thing that you can do for yourself is to figure out how to spend the least amount of money possible to get out of that situation. And to do that, you're going to want to kind of wheel and deal. And so I know that there's a couple situations that you can do a consolidated loan, which if you have that kind of debt, you're probably getting something in the mail. That's not good. Those are the predators. Don't open a piece of mail and go, oh, okay, that looks solid. And then, like if you think it's interesting, do your research and see what other people are saying. Because most likely it's some predatory credit lending situation. But if you are like in that place, you're going to want to either... I'm going to do the don'ts first. Don't go down to your local loan shark and don't sign up for like a 50 to 100% interest for a personal loan kind of situation. Those places, like they will gouge you and they'll do it happily and they'll do it legally. And so like never, ever, ever go to one of the quick cash places. If it's down to that and like it's food or whatever, like start liquidating your savings first, start liquidating your 401k first. It'll be less destructive to you in the long run. And then if you don't have a 401k or savings, there's always like blood, semen, and time you can donate. So like, don't go to a loan shark. They will gouge you for the rest of your life.
I'd say like even if you find yourself and like thank God I haven't really been like in the lowest of having situations like that, but given my particular background, I've talked to people and they'd say that you would need to go honestly to if you ever get to the point, because it happened with COVID, man. People lost businesses, ended up in debt, went homeless, all these things, and to be able to navigate in a society of like kind of being in the bottom of the barrel society, like and going to the food banks and stuff, it's very humbling.
Yeah.
But you want to be able to go and do those first, even before you go and get those kind of loans. Mm-hmm. Payday loan type things, and because I mean once you get into that trap of financial destitution, it's extremely hard to get out of, like with debt and stuff like that.
It is.
Yeah.
And no, that's what I mean. Like if you're circling the drain, if you will, don't listen to the bullies. Don't consider anything other than yourself. Like they're gonna try to make threats and they're gonna try to tell you like you are in trouble and we're gonna start garnishing your wages. But honestly, like use the snowball method, like mentioned before. Do your inventory, make your budget, do the snowball method, and just start with what you can, and be on the lookout for those deals that they're gonna start trying to cut with you, because those deals, like they're gonna be a huge game changer. If you have $100,000 worth of debt and you can get 40% off, that is $40,000. There's no small amount. Now your credit you're gonna be like under 400 when you come out the other side, but you'll have enough breathing room to actually build credit, because you're not in this unstoppable cycle of minimum payments and just getting gouged until you're like every drop of blood that you have is gone. I've seen it happen to a lot of sailors when I was in the military, and it was really frustrating. So yeah, sorry for getting on my soapbox about that. But yeah, that's the calculated risk portion that I wanted to mention. And so to kind of sum it all up and bring it back in, if you are in a bit of a pickle with debt, or whether you are or not, you're just looking to get rid of your debt faster, the first thing you're going to want to do is inventory all of your payments out and start making some small sacrifices where you can, and make a budget and stick to it. Using that extra cash, you're going to apply the snowball method. If you're just joining us or whatever, you're from the future, look it up. It's very common, very tried and true. Just make sure you're being aware of interest rates. We went over some do's and don'ts as far as like in the credit world, and we went over some loan consolidation methods. And I think we did a little bit on credit repair as well and calculated risk. So that concludes everything that I wanted to bring to the conversation today. Was there anything, does anyone have any like closing statements, or does anybody have like, what's going on in your world? Like, does anyone have a plug or a business shout out? Because I definitely do, but I want to let you guys go first.
I do not have anything yet, but I'd love to hear your little plug going on right here.
Thanks, man.
Sure.
Yeah, so my name is Frank the Gray Mage, and besides these chats, I do much else in the marketing world. I am a professional web development. I do top-down, full stack development, which is front and back, and I also am a graphic designer. All of these shows, they are live streamed, which is a testament to my technological abilities, which is why people call me the Gray Mage, because I am a tech wizard. And so I have a website for these chats and all other chats coming up. It is graychats.live. That's an HTTPS, graychats.live. And there it has all of the information for all of our upcoming topics. And so this conversation and all the ones that I'm hosting, I am trying to bring the people back together and try to end some of this divisiveness that has been just really suckling at the society of the Americas. And so I would love for you to join me whenever you can. Obviously, grab the conversations that you want to. I don't expect to see everyone's faces 3 times a week, but I think I have some interesting topics, and I'd love to see you around. So hopefully, I look forward to welcoming you back.
For sure, man. Well, it was nice to meet you, and I appreciate your help today.
Definitely, yeah. And if you ever, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me on the socials I have. You can shoot me text or whatever.
Cool. If you don't mind me asking, what socials do you have?
So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. I have a Twitch channel as well as YouTube. But as far as communication, either Telegram or Facebook is probably best for text.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm a young man, so I'm not on Facebook as much as some other people. But I'll definitely try to add you on that.
You can catch me on Instagram too. I check them all, just not as frequently on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, whatever works, man.
My IG is JETTX03. If you would repeat yours, I'd be happy to add you real quick.
So across all of them, I should be the Gray Mage, and except for Instagram. Instagram, it's Frank Sheffield.
Okay. How do you spell Sheffield?
SHEFFIELD. And I'll drop it in the text. I'll drop a link before I close out here.
Hey, aren't you doing these also on another live feed too? Video?
Yeah. So if you check out the website, graychats.live, it'll have all of the places where this content can be found, and it also has all of the socials that I use for this project. And so you can get in contact with me in any one of those.
Yeah, there's a whole really cool video live feed going on here too. That's not streaming on Clubhouse, so it's a pretty cool little program here that Franklin has going on, and we're just out here building culture and creating more value for the community of people that we're involved in. So ideally, some of those people, much more of these people in the audience that we're involved with will be coming on here, but we're also recording this stuff and putting it out there. So, it's like Franklin here has set up a lot of different infrastructure underneath, just behind Clubhouse too. So it's pretty cool to get involved with the way that the technology has it all connected.
Well, thank you for that plug, Joshua.
All right.
I much appreciated, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm gonna hop off. As always, look forward to seeing you guys in 2 days. Much love.
For sure. All right. Much love, man. Catch you, brother. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Have a good one.
You as well. All right. Bye.
Bye. All right.